Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the exact moment your ex decides not to text you. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing the exact moment your ex decides not to text you. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, there is always a chance that your ex will text you, unless they get to the point where they decide, no, this isn't going to happen. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 exact instances when a dumper decides not to text their dumpee. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is when you refuse to listen. So when you and your now former partner were in a loving relationship, you were both feeling a high level of romantic emotional attraction for one another. At this moment in time, you likely listened to each other. If you didn't, then this relationship wouldn't have lasted very long at all. But if you had a healthy, loving, long-lasting relationship, you would have both listened to one another, spoke with one another, tried to support one another, and ultimately you got along as best as you could. These are the foundations of a happy relationship, having good communication skills. Now, for various potential reasons, unfortunately for you, the dumpee, your now ex, the dumper, lost romantic emotional attraction for you. And when it hit the necessary low point, this is when they decided to action the breakup. And when they actioned the breakup, they made a decision that they want to go down their own path. They want to go down their own route. They want to make their own way in the world away from this romantic relationship. They do not feel that the romantic relationship that you both shared is something that can fulfill them going forward. They do not feel confident that this is the best option for them right now, in this moment, living their life going forward. So they end the relationship, and they would have told you in their own words, please leave me alone, please let me do my own thing, please let me go this way and you go that way. They ended the relationship. And at that moment, you have an opportunity as a dumpee to say your piece, to try and sort things out, to try and smooth things over, to have a discussion, to try and bring that good communication which presumably got you through to this point. Now, if and when your ex-dumper becomes your ex-dumper and they decide that no, from what you've said, I'm still believing that I want to end this relationship, I just do not want to continue in this vein. When the dust settles and the relationship is clearly finished, this is a moment where you as a dumpee have 2 options. You can either listen and respect your ex's decision, whilst also trying to go through the appropriate steps that I advise if you want to try to get your ex back from this point, or alternatively, you can refuse to listen to your ex-dumper and you can continue to pursue them. You can continue to chase them. You can continue to text them, call them, knock on their door, wait outside where they work. Whatever it is that you're trying to do from a point of where the dust has settled, you are not listening to your dumper. And you might not think they deserve to be listened to. You might think they've ended this relationship for an unfair reason. I think we're great together. Let's sort this out. But you are not respecting, and more importantly, not listening to what they're saying. They are saying that they do not feel the vibe anymore. They do not feel enough romantic emotional attraction for you right now to be continuing in a romantic relationship. And once they've made that decision, once you've said your piece, once they've maintained that stance, you have no choice in all reality but to respect their decision. Now, if you don't want to get your ex back, then that might seem a more obvious move. Okay, I'm going to respect what you say because I'm going to do my thing anyway. But if you do want your ex back, this is when things get confusing. Because you're thinking, well, if I don't try and persuade them otherwise, I've lost them forever. Now listen, I've been doing this job a number of years, and there are certain patterns that you see. And if you're a dumpee who wants to try to get their ex back, and you chase your ex, you are actually less likely to one day in the future get back together. Your best move is to respect their decision, concentrate on yourself, implement my version of a no contact rule, and live your life to the full. Now, there might be some intricacies and some specific situations connected to what you're going through, which might be different to the generalised advice. Very, very, very occasionally, I might even suggest that a dumpee does reach out to their dumper. But by and large, as an average piece of advice, in a generalised sense, if you've been dumped, you should never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. And when we consider the exact moment that your ex decides not to text you, point number one is when you refuse to listen. If you refuse to listen, if you keep chasing your ex, if you don't respect their decision, if you're not understanding that they're not feeling enough attraction right now, and whether or not you feel this relationship is working, you must understand that they don't. They're not feeling it. You might want it, but they don't. And you both need to be feeling like you want to move forward together to have any opportunity for this to succeed. So if you refuse to listen to this point of view, to this fact that your ex wants to do their own thing and they don't want to be together right now, then you're going to be annoying your ex. You're going to be frustrating your ex. You're going to be doing everything which is the opposite of what you need to do. You need to be the type of person that somebody, i.e. your ex, wants to spend time with. Not somebody who clearly doesn't listen to their ex, clearly doesn't respect their ex, clearly doesn't care how they're feeling, but you're thinking, I don't care how you feel, I just care how I feel, and I want to get back together with you. Ultimately, that's what's going through your mind, even at a subconscious level. If you refuse to listen, you are going to chase, you're going to frustrate, you're going to annoy. And I've spoke to so many dumpers who have told me the exact moment when they decided, you know what, I'm not going to text you again, but it did actually cross my mind that maybe I would. The exact moment that they decide they're not going to do that is when they feel that their dumpee is not listening, not understanding, not respecting, going too far, chasing, pursuing. I hear this all the time. And this is why it's so important to say in point number one, that the exact moment that your ex decides not to text you is when you refuse to listen and you keep chasing them. So now let's get into point number two and the second point of today's podcast, about the exact moment your ex decides not to text you. And point number two is when you seem unstable. So sometimes a dumpee will develop a strategy where they think, well, if I showcase myself as somebody who is needy and desperate for help and attention, then maybe my dumper will come back to me. If I show myself as vulnerable in a way where I'm not necessarily safe to be on my own, I need my ex-dumper to come and look after me. I need my ex-dumper to think that unless they're with me, I'm going to be getting myself into some trouble here. If a dumpee behaves in this way, and sometimes it's consciously and sometimes it's subconsciously, then they believe that their ex-dumper might give them the attention that they believe they deserve, and at that point they can get back together. They believe that if they show they're so upset, that their ex-dumper will come to quote-unquote save them, and realise that they were wrong, and realise that they're better together, and that they need to be with you in a way to make sure you're okay. Now sometimes the dumper might find out about this type of behaviour through social media, maybe in person. I like to give the example of if you both attended the same party, and your ex-dumper walks in, and they see you standing in the corner, looking over at them and crying. And maybe the dumper will walk over to the dumpee at this point and give them a hug and ask if they're okay, and ask if they can do anything to try and make them feel better. A dumpee at this stage might think that they have achieved something, that maybe this is the first time that they've actually had a conversation with their ex-dumper in many months. They think, yes, this is how I want to bring this together. My ex-dumper is worried about me. This has got to be a good thing. It shows they care. It shows they want to get back together. Well, unfortunately, most dumpers in this position are not going to want to get back together with you romantically. They're going to be worried about you. They're going to be feeling pity towards you, but they're not going to be feeling romantic feelings. Because if somebody's worried about you, it's not romance, it is worry. If somebody is feeling that you need them because else you can't stand up, they're going to be concerned about you, but they're not going to be feeling physically, mentally, or emotionally attracted towards you. And this is the difference. There is a difference between concern and romantic love. And if you want to try to get your ex back, it's the romantic love that you need to grow. So if you seem unstable, people are going to be worried about you, including your ex for dumper if they find out. They may have a conversation with you. They may, depending on the instance, give you a hug. But this is very unlikely to create a situation where your ex for dumper actually wants to be romantic with you again. It means more likely that they're terrified by what you're going to be doing if they don't try and support you, but as soon as they can, they're going to make distance between you both. They're going to be concerned, they're going to be worried, they're going to be shocked. I've spoke to many dumpers who have told me that when they found out that their ex for dumpee was unstable, when they found out their ex for dumpee was going through a very difficult time, instead of bringing them closer towards their dumpee, it actually made them want to run a mile. Now, sometimes they tried to reach out and provide a helping hand, thinking that this could help initially, but soon realised that this is just a sticking plaster, this is just a band-aid. This isn't going to heal anything, because the dumpee wants to get back together, and the dumper certainly doesn't at this stage. At this point, they decide to further move on from their dumpee. So when we consider another exact moment your ex decides not to text you, it's when they feel that you are unstable. Maybe initially they kind of checked in and tried to help, or when they realise and understand that your stability seems to be connected to you two being together, at that point they're very unlikely to text you again. They're more likely to take further steps away from you because they're worried, they don't know what to do for the best. Maybe initially they'll try and help, but when they realise they can't, unless you get back together, they're thinking, I'm sorry, but I don't find this romantically attractive. I'm going to go further away from this point and certainly not text you. Now, if you want support and guidance about how to try and increase the chance of getting your ex back rather than pushing them further away, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast, about the exact moment your ex decides not to text you. And point number 3 is when they meet a deemed better match. And when I say a deemed better match, it's because it's at that moment in time that they deem this to be a better match. And you need to be listening clearly to this, dumpees, because I don't want you misconstruing what I'm saying. If and when your breakup took place, you think to yourself, I'm worried that my ex-dumper is going to find somebody else. Let me be absolutely clear that the statistical likelihood of them finding a new long-term connection anytime soon is very, very unlikely. It's so hard to find a long-term compatible partner. That is one of the reasons right now why you're so upset, because you realise that the connection you had with your dumper is hard to find. It's hard to find a long-term compatible partner. It's not easy. You can't walk down the street, speak to a random person, and statistically find somebody who you're going to get married to and live happily ever after. It's very, very unlikely. And therefore, when I'm talking about your ex-dumper potentially meeting a better match, somebody that they deem to be a better match, I'm not talking anytime soon. Could it happen? Maybe about 1 in 1,000 times, but it's not likely. No, it really, really isn't. If you find out your ex-dumper has actually gone on a date a few months after you broke up, it is more than likely a rebound relationship which will end as quickly as it starts. But when I speak about another exact moment where your ex decides not to text you, and I say in point number 3 that when they meet a deemed better match, I'm talking about when they see and they believe this is a better match, this is somebody that they feel they're connecting with better. This is more than likely going to be more than a year after your breakup, often longer. People are generally single for more than a year, maybe 1, 2, 3 years after a breakup. It is the general situation that you see. So although it is possible, it's not very likely to take place until much further down the line, at least a year and beyond, where they might theoretically bump into somebody that they deem to be a better match. And if this is somebody that they feel is a better match, this is the point where they're not going to text you. They're not going to be thinking about reaching out to you, the dumpee, if they believe they're connecting with somebody on a better level. Just as you are unlikely to want to reach out to your ex, the dumper, if and when you meet somebody you deem to be a better match. Now at the moment you're not thinking that's possible. You're thinking it's impossible, I'll never meet somebody like my dumper. But honestly, if you live your life to the full, if you do the things that I suggest in my podcasts, the hints, tips and advice, you'll be growing and becoming a version 2.0 of yourself. So not only do you increase the chance of getting your ex back, but you also increase the chance of attracting somebody even better into your life. And if you meet somebody who you deem better than your dumper, then at that stage, you're not going to be worrying about trying to stop yourself texting your ex. Right now it's probably a daily challenge. Don't text my ex, don't text my ex. It won't feel like that if and when you meet somebody better. And you will. If you live your life to the full, you will meet somebody better than your dumper. And if your dumper decides to reach out, you will have a choice. What do you do from here? And this is why it's something to consider, not necessarily in a scary way about point number 3, but something to give you that feeling that it could happen to you sooner. Because when I talk about meeting a better match, it's not just about your ex, the dumper, but it's also about you. You're both living your life as a single person now. And even though I think it's unlikely either of you will find a better match within the first year, you both stand an opportunity when it goes beyond a year. It doesn't mean you can't get your ex back after a year, but it does mean that there is a chance that the people that they might be meeting beyond that point could be somebody that they connect with, just as it could be people that you connect with. Now, I've heard of dumpers reaching out to dumpees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So please, if it's just tipped past the year point, don't start feeling scared, thinking, well, I can't hear from my ex again, because you absolutely could. If they even get into a relationship, it doesn't mean it's going to last forever. Even if they meet somebody beyond a year point, it's not necessarily going to be the one they get married to. Relationships end every day, and maybe it takes them to have another relationship before they realise how much you and them was actually more compatible than they even realised. Maybe that new relationship ends, and then they reach out to you 18 months down the line. I'm not telling you to wait. In fact, I'm actually telling you to push forward and you to be the one to meet somebody better, so you're no longer having to fight yourself every day to prevent yourself from actually reaching out to your ex, because if and when you meet somebody better, you won't want to text your ex. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.